Got a message from Frank White. I was making a lot of money off them Colombians. Tell him she made a big mistake with me.
Are you arresting me?
We risk our lives every night, and Frank gets rich on killing. Can get him out in 10 minutes. This whole system favors the scumbag.
With or without you?
I'm gonna get Frank.
Critics called King of New York flawless, but missed the clue that ruins everything. Hit play before Hollywood deletes this video. Today, we're going to explain the film King of New York, released in 1990. It's a gripping crime drama that follows the story of a gangster named Frank, who returns to New York after serving 14 years in prison. But when he comes back, he finds that his former empire has been taken over by rival gangs. Now the big question is, can Frank reclaim his throne? The movie begins with Frank being released from prison. 14 years ago, he was the kingpin of several illegal operations across New York City, including drugs and prostitution. His criminal empire eventually landed him behind bars. But now that he's free, he wastes no time and returns to his old turf, only to find that Chinese and Colombian drug lords have taken over his territories, including his prostitution business. Frank's name no longer holds fear in the city. Meanwhile, the Colombian kingpin of the prostitution ring is seen rushing to make a call, but gets gunned down. The attackers show him a newspaper article revealing that Frank is out of prison, clearly a message. At a hotel, a man named Jimmy is negotiating a drug deal with a dealer named Tito. Jimmy's nagging annoys Tito, who increases the drug price. With no options left, Jimmy agrees to the deal and hands over a bag. But when Tito opens it, he finds it empty, just a bunch of used packets. Enraged, Tito lashes out, but Jimmy and his men open fire and kill him. Jimmy then reports back to a mysterious figure, who turns out to be Frank. The entire hit was orchestrated by Frank to regain control. That Jimmy not only kills the dealer and the Colombian pimp, but also brings back their cash and assets, making Frank very pleased. They celebrate their victory, but Jimmy reminds Frank of a scheduled meeting with a middleman named Licho. Eager to rebuild his empire, Frank attends the meeting where high-profile lawyers and politicians are present. Surprisingly, they welcome him. Frank meets Licho and asks him to set up a meeting with another big player, Clay. However, Clay refuses to meet Frank, remembering how Licho once mocked him. Meanwhile, on a subway, Frank and a woman named Jennifer have an encounter with small-time thieves. But when they spot a gun on Frank, they back off in fear. Rather than retaliating, Frank hands them some money and tells them to meet him later. Back at the hotel, Frank hears about Clay's rejection and decides to confront him directly at a business gathering. Frank asks Clay to partner up, but Clay mocks and refuses him. Frank loses his temper, pulls out a gun, and shoots Clay multiple times until he's dead. Terrified, the other businessmen quickly agreed to work with Frank. Later, Frank meets the mayor to discuss funding for a hospital that had shut down due to financial issues. When the mayor refuses, Frank decides to raise $16 million himself to reopen it. That just then, 3 detectives, Tommy, Roy, and Dennis, arrest Frank. His lawyer tries to intervene, but they ignore him and take Frank to a remote location. There, they show him a body in the car, accusing him of recent gang murders since his release. Frank denies involvement, and since there's no evidence, they leave him. Elsewhere, Frank's gang approaches a Chinese dealer named Wang to cut a deal. Wang agrees, but insists on cash only, knowing Frank's finances are tight. Meanwhile, Jimmy helps a poor grandmother and her grandkids, but gets arrested. The police see him as a key witness against Frank. Back at the hospital, Frank tries convincing Wang to work with him, but Wang still demands cash. Upon learning of Jimmy's arrest, Frank assigns Jennifer to get him out. She succeeds, and the detectives are furious. Jennifer mocks them before leaving. Frank then takes his gang to Chinatown, where the Chinese drug dealers have taken over his spots. They wipe them all out and capture Wang. After scaring him, they steal all his property and kill him. Frank uses the money to reopen the hospital, earning public support. This worries Dennis, who realizes that Frank might soon become a public hero. If that happens, arresting him will be almost impossible. Dennis considers taking gangster-like action, but gets little support from his team. Meanwhile, Frank meets with a cartel boss from Los Angeles who wants to buy 200 pounds of drugs. Frank demands full payment up front, but the buyer asks for more time. After the meeting, Frank kills one of their men, prompting a full-scale attack from the cartel. Frank and Jimmy narrowly escape the ambush. During their escape, Jimmy realizes one attacker is a cop and pushes him out of the car, killing him. It turns out the people chasing them aren't gangsters. They're the police, led by Dennis and Tommy. A high-speed shootout follows. Frank's car crashes, and while trying to flee, Tommy chases Jimmy while Dennis goes after Frank. Jimmy shoots at Tommy, but Dennis kills Jimmy to save his partner, though Tommy dies anyway. Dennis is devastated and breaks down at Tommy's funeral. As he walks away, someone shoots him dead. 2 days later, Frank confronts Licho, who had betrayed him to the police for money. Frank orders his men to bury Licho along with the cash he was paid. That night, Detective Roy returns home only to find Frank waiting for him. Frank confesses to all the murders, claiming he only killed people who deserve to die, like those involved in child prostitution. Frank handcuffs Roy and says he still has more work to do. As Frank leaves, Roy frees himself and follows Frank into the subway. There, Frank kills Roy too, but not without taking serious injuries himself. Barely alive, Frank stumbles into a taxi. The driver sees the gun in Frank's hand, flees the car, and screams for the police. Surrounded, Frank doesn't surrender to the cops. Instead, he silently gives himself up to God and dies. And that's how this powerful story ends. What did you think of the movie? See you in the next video. Till then, bye and take care. Was King of New York right, or just a monster? Thanks for watching.